Okay,
I'm not
we are
hearing-
live on YouTube too.
Okay. Let's give her a couple of minutes and then start. How's that? Because it's only 11.
Sounds good.
How's everybody loving this weather?
Oh, man. Amazing, huh?
I know it's going on all week apparently, except for
Yep.
one half a cloudy day.
This is the best. This is why we live in New England.
Yes. And then we forget the rest.
Has anyone turned on their heat yet?
Yeah, we did yesterday.
Yeah. Today's
my
the first day I thought to do it. We haven't yet, though.
My husband has
you.
become my father, and we don't turn the heat on until we see the breath in the house.
Oh, no.
That's
I
what
think that's
sweaters
my
are
parents
for.
too.
It's like, Dad, we're dying in here. Okay.
So also for the minutes, Mr. Lit is in the audience,
Okay.
and there's a Kathy Gittens who's in the audience too. She was somebody I spoke with at the book sale. She's interested at some point in the future in potentially being a trustee. So I was going to give you her information, Marguerite, so that if
Okay.
you wanted to talk with her.
All right. I'm not seeing her in the.
No, you won't. She's in the
Attendees.
attendees right now. on
Oh,
Zoom.
yeah. Okay.
So welcome, Kathy. Thank you for coming. And
Janet is in the attendees.
yeah, she just popped in.
All righty. Thanks.
I think her computer might have been giving her trouble because it was saying 3 and only 2 people were listed for a while. So
All right. Okay, Janet's aboard. Let's call the meeting to order at 11:03. Okay, now we got Janet. The first item is review and approve the minutes of September 21 and October 5. And the minutes are not ready yet, so I'm going to ask us to table this item until next time. Any objections?
Nope.
All righty, let's move on to the director's report. Morning, Janet.
Morning. Sorry.
also Mr. Stivers has joined us in the attendees. So we have Timothy Litt, Kathy Gittens, and Sam Stivers. So
Okay, good. So director's report.
yes, so some of the items are broken out. I guess we should talk about the roof leak first. So it looks like it was caulking that was not applied correctly, or didn't dry correctly. We haven't really gotten the final what happened, but we know it's a caulking issue. They were up there Monday. I believe it's already been fixed. So we are going to assess if the insulation got saturated, if there was any sort of systemic damage. It doesn't look like anything happened with the electrical, which is good news because nothing's affecting the lights. And the repair work is going to be pretty quick because really only one ceiling tile at this point we know needs to be replaced. So obviously this is making us all go back and check the roof out again to make sure everything is okay. So it won't just be that area. I think we're kind of looking at the entire roof again, just to make sure everything is going to be winterized and leak proof as much as possible.
And the warranty on the roof is how long, Ryan?
John believes it's 20 years. So it was longer than I thought at the last meeting.
Okay, so in other words, for the next 20 years, we can call them and have them come and do anything that needs to get done?
We're verifying that. We can put it in the minutes because that's what John thinks and that's what he told me, but
Right.
he was double checking
All right, thank you.
It's a pretty significant amount of time. I thought we were only under warranty for a couple years, and it's more than that apparently. So
Okay, good.
I will say, again, the response rate by everybody was very quick. So it was good that they were on site and they were dealing with it right away. Okay,
Oh,
so
a quick question. So this is not related to the recent re-roofing project. This is something that predates that. Is that correct?
no, this was because they
Part of
redid the
current
roof.
project.
Yeah,
It's a new
so one
roof.
of the ceiling things,
Yeah.
like a sealant that they use, like the caulking on it.
Yeah.
Again, I think the funniest part of this is me having to describe construction in any part of these meetings, because I completely do not sound like I know what I'm talking about. But they like sealed it with caulking, and I don't know if they didn't use enough. So I can't even tell you where the specific part in the roof was, but it was finishing work that was done on the roof that wasn't completely done right and somehow was missed in all the checking. But it was one small area, right? And it's not a systemic problem. It looks like it's isolated to this one area that's just above the circulation desk upstairs. And the water didn't leak on a computer or a monitor or any electrical equipment. So that's good news, right? If we're going to have a leak,
Got to
it
take
could
a
have
win.
been- yeah.
That is so sad. I know, and the new carpet's going in soon. Okay, so,
I think I've said this before during the flood, but I was like, I always try to look at the glass half full because the water keeps leaking in it, right? So I have to. Anyway, I don't think there was a significant amount of water that came in over the weekend either. And we had a lot of rain, right? So that's good news.
and they've re-inspected all the other caulking just proactively to make sure that it's fine, or do we just,
They've been focused on that area, Marguerite, but we're talking about having them do maybe even beyond that, just, doing a check through again. Because remember, they did an infrared scan,
yeah.
right? So that might even be something we want to explore doing a second time, potentially.
Well,
So-
the infrared scan showed a mass, for lack of a better word.
It's moisture. It was specifically looking at moisture issues.
But it
So
wasn't
again,
the
if
same place, was it? It wasn't?
it wasn't the same place. We
All
were
right.
more focused specifically on where the staff room is.
Mhm.
So this is where the circulation desk is. So we've never had water come in where it came in on the leak a couple weeks ago.
All right.
We always find new areas for water to come in the building. That is
Say that. Don't say that.
Yeah, David's got it down as the L word. So anyway, okay, so I guess that's under control. They're looking at it, and the warranty is bigger than we thought, which is excellent. Okay. Any other items in the director's report you'd like to point out?
Oh, I hope it's okay with the board. We talked about this months and months ago. I would like to begin work with Janet on constructing a staff survey. That was something that's kind of, just because we've had so many other action items over the past couple months, dealing with COVID and, just assorted issues. I do think starting in November, because I'm not going to be as focused on programming, I would like to take that opportunity to work with Janet on the staff survey. So this is kind of, I looked at stuff that we had talked about me doing, during my evaluation, and I'm kind of following up because now I'm coming up on the 6-month mark. So that is something that, if the board is okay with, we talked about, just to refresh everybody, we talked about doing like a survey that would go to the staff. And we have some new staff members here, which I think would be worthwhile to include, while also looking at some of our senior and longer term staff members.
Are you using the Survey Monkey?
Yeah, we do that again.
All right. Any on paper?
We could.
I mean, I'm not suggesting, I'm just really wondering if there would be hard copies.
We could. I could make hard copies available.
Do we need it?
I don't think so.
Okay, then skip it. Just wondering. Okay, so thank you, Janet. That's great. Good luck, and we look forward to hearing more on that one. So great.
The
Oh,
other thing is, it's never too early to start talking about, I guess, employee appreciation holiday celebrations, right? So instead of, I know in the past, the board has gone to a restaurant and we've kind of taken the staff out to dinner. Just because we're still dealing with COVID, we didn't really do anything last year. We did kind of a small, I think, kind of holiday lunch. And Amy Yazdani had helped by bringing a lot of that material. And I think even donating some material for it, like, you know, drinks and kind of snacks, you know, we had like prepackaged stuff. So, you know, Amy and I have had a brief talk about maybe doing something at the library this year that is kind of like a celebration, but maybe not still going to a restaurant. I don't think we're back at that level yet. So we can talk more about that in November. We have some time to plan, but I just wanted to get the sense from the board if that would be something. Because typically the trustees and the staff, this is a night where you guys get to hang out and we get to have everybody kind of come together. So we do that usually on a Monday night. You know, we did the Friends potluck a number of years ago on a Monday night at the library, and that was very nice. So I think we'd be able to, depending on the status of our carpet, I think we could do that again. And then we just, you know, I think Amy has also been gracious enough to talk about donating tablecloths. So we'd make sure we're not getting any food on the new carpet, right? Because we want to avoid that the first month. But I just wanted to get the sense that that would be something that Amy and I can continue to work on and kind of plan for, and then let you guys know.
well, I think it's wonderful. And I think, thank you, Amy, for taking point again on this one.
No problem.
You're our activities director here with the staff.
I have tons of
Social
paper
director.
goods to donate if you need any. I have leftovers from a shower.
The mother of the bride has
Yeah.
paper goods.
Yeah, I think we did Kennedy's last year. That's what we did. We had like Kennedy's catering and they got us stuff. And that was,
Yeah, it was good. It worked out really well. So any help you need on that, Amy, let us know. As
Sure.
you date anything like that. It sounds good. It sounds great.
Marguerite, can we move back to one of the items on the general updates?
Mhm.
So Ryan, you said you were beginning to look at spring 2022 programs, and you were asking for suggestions on
Yeah.
topics and speakers such as Indigenous culture events and stuff like that. There is a group in town, I think it was kind of created to support the high school in our schools. It's called Northborough Southborough Alliance for Social Justice. And I've been in contact with one of the parents who is active in that group. Her name is Jessica Levinson. And I think she would have a lot of ideas on programs. So do you want me to set up a meeting or put her in touch with you or someone at the library to see how we could kind of get something together for the spring?
yeah, that would be great. We can do it in person or over Zoom.
Okay.
Whichever is easier. And then if we end up doing more of, you know, a younger age group, or we want to do like middle and high school grade, I might want to involve one of the other staff members. So it would be Kim Ivers or Mariana Sorensen, respectively. So just so that they could be sort of the point person to coordinate. If we want to do like an adult lecture program, I would be kind of the person, so we wouldn't have to include another staff member. If the
Mhm.
kids wanted to, like if there's students who are involved and they want to structure it as a program for adults, we could do that. So, I mean, I think an initial conversation about what they could do, would it be something we'd look at in person early next year, or do we want to keep it to Zoom? There's a couple questions that we can kind of go over, but thank you for bringing a suggestion, because that was exactly why it was in the report. So
Yeah, I think this group has been thinking a lot about it, and I'm not sure that they've seen too much progress in events happening through the schools. So, just in talking with them, it seems like maybe the library would be a good place to be able to get those programs out. And if you're thinking of similar topics as well, that might work for both groups.
We are partnering with the Shrewsbury Library and a bunch of other area libraries on a Zoom program for an author who wrote a book about race. So we're going to be promoting that a lot, I would say in the next couple of weeks, sort of gearing up for that. But that is the only program I have, I would say, regarding that topic right now. And I am looking, I'm tentatively, I would say Kim and I are tentatively starting to plan in-person programs for the spring. So that is kind of our rough time frame right now. But one of the things we're going to talk to potential programmers about is being able to kind of pivot to Zoom, if that's something that a format we have to remain on. So we can kind of talk about all of those. But would the board be okay if Kim is available, if we include Kim Regan in those conversations? I think it would be good if she helps act as a bridge between the library and the school with me, if that's okay.
I think it'd be great.
Is
Kim,
it the
you wanna-
school or is it an independent group, Kim?
No, it's not the school. It's a parent-formed group
Okay.
that is trying to bring more education around this through the schools, but I think they're open to bringing it in any means that they could reach people.
That's great.
I'm trying to find, I had said to Ryan, I think it would be good to bring a discussion about the Indigenous people of the area. Wellesley had done a nice program just recently.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to track down, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when this all started, there was a woman from, I think she taught at Harvard, who lived in Northborough, if anybody knows who she is, that was speaking about, I think her specialty is African-American and Indigenous people history. So I think she'd be good if we could get her, especially being local, but I'm trying to track down who she is. And then anybody else, I think it would behoove us to offer some of those. So
Yeah, there's a question of paying for it too. That's the other part of it.
Well, Amy Yazdani also mentioned to me, so we've essentially spent our programming budget for the year already. They're with the Shrewsbury program, and then the Friends are helping us partially cover the gingerbread program we're doing in December. So I know that there's some, is it SC, should I say SCF or
it is
SCF?
yeah. No,
SCF, yeah.
SEF doesn't exist anymore. It's now SCF community.
So SCF has a couple mini grants which open in January.
Nope,
that we
mini
could
grants
have-
are available at all time for $500 or less. I'm sorry, don't mean to step on your toes, but
No.
and then in January, we'll open up for our major grants, and we fund those the money comes in around June. And that will be for any education oriented grant. Our fall ones, which was just awarded, I think Ryan discussed that Kim was awarded money just recently, but the fall is more general grants. The spring are education based, which I think almost anything the library does can fall under that as well. So it's an opportunity. It's just another, of course, grant for the staff, particularly to fall on Ryan's shoulders, but it could open some money for this kind of thing.
The other
But
thing
the
we could,
timing's wrong, right? If we needed it for, say, March, then we'd be off cycle.
well, no, because the SCF mini grants are year round. So we could apply for those, and then
Mhm.
next time they have a meeting, I think they could make a
Yep.
decision. The other thing I'll just mention too is that the Friends group always considers requests, and they have a meeting this Wednesday, but this would be something that, like, in a November meeting, if we have potential options we could fund. Also, this is a good segue into eventually talking about the FY23 budget, because I'm going to ask for some feedback on if there's an appetite to put in more programming money
Yes.
next year. So the other thing would be, we could spend the next several months identifying speakers and looking at programs that we would need to fund. And then if we push them to either the summer or the fall, we may have funding available for those. That's it from our budget. So this would be, there's sort of the interim option. We could look at SCF grants and Friends funding, and then in the summer and fall, we could look at funding it out of our budget.
It sounds good. Would Jessica Levinson's programs one for children, one for adults, or how would she do that?
I don't have a lot of details on that, and I'm not sure she does either quite yet. So I think just starting discussion will at least help us define maybe what our needs are, and see how that lines up with what they're trying to promote.
Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of trustee nodding of the head in favor of you pursuing this. So any trustees have a comment on this?
Oh, I think it's a
Sounds
great
good.
idea.
Yeah.
I guess that's a go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I misspoke that it was an Algonquin group and not a parents group, but I'm honestly
Parents.
yeah, I'm interested working with anyone, especially on this topic, because it's not like I have a list of speakers or a list of topics that I think, to sort of draw from here. So I think the more people we involved and the more conversations we have about how to plan the programs moving forward, finding how to pay for it has always been something I can do. And it is possible we might find people who will do lectures or jump on a Zoom for free. We've had a lot of success with that over the past couple of years. So
Have we ever tried doing an appeal to the community to pay for programming?
I think we do that every time we ask for
I was
money in
gonna
our
say.
programming budget.
Yeah, town meeting.
No, but I mean specific donations.
Like fundraising.
No,
Yeah. All right.
we do sometimes if people say they want to support programs financially, we
Mhm.
often tell them that they can donate to the Friends group. And I would say some people do independently do that.
All right. Okay, I was just wondering because it seems like it's an ongoing sore spot in our ability to bring programs in is the paying for them. I was
I
wondering.
know, but we shouldn't have to be like running around fundraising either. I mean, my understanding is that should be part of our actual budget. That's what the library does, is provide programming.
In an ideal universe, yes. In actuality, we have always been scrambling for programming money.
The money that we have in the library donations supplemental fund, how's that money getting in there? And I guess, do we have a specific outlines for the purposes of when we draw from that fund?
The Southborough Library Fund?
No,
Yeah.
you guys are talking about two different things now. So
Okay.
there's the separate sort of community fund thing set up after the first flood in 2011. That's what Marguerite just mentioned.
Okay.
And then there's the donations account, where if somebody makes a donation to the Southborough Library and the money gets accepted by the selectmen, it has to get approved at a selectmen meeting. It goes into a separate line item account. So actually, in the 7.5 years I've been in Southborough, Kim, we have never spent money out of the donations account, with the exception of we used that for the ALA grant. We put the $3,000 in, we took the $3,000 out in order to fund the financial literacy programs. So we've never actually drawn directly, I would say, from the donations account. So there's, I think, $10,000 at least in there that could be used to support programming. So right there, that might be something where we don't have to ask the Friends, or we don't have to apply for a grant. If we find funding, the only thing I would do is, just because it's use of a supplemental account, I would probably want to check with the full board at a meeting to make sure that they're aware that we're going to be drawing from that, and to give a ballpark idea about how much we're going to take out. But that is an excellent idea, Kim. That is definitely something we could use to support programming. I kind of agree with Amy's point. I would just say in that I do think if we're going to try to repeatedly have ongoing program, and it's going to be I feel like programming is part of the library's core mission, because that's one of the ways that we educate and sort of engage with the public and have discussions, is that should be supported on a budget level.
I agree.
And I don't know if you guys get the newsletters from other libraries. I do, to see what other libraries are doing. And no matter how hard Ryan runs, there's no money to offer what,
Right.
I mean, it's kind of embarrassing when you look at what other libraries, even small ones, offer. And to say we don't have the funds is like, I don't know, telling the public safety, that's great. We'll give you the guns, but not the bullets, or we'll give you the, the fire trucks, but not the hoses, or
Okay.
I'm not good at the analogy because I don't know exactly, but the whole point, that it's where libraries are not just books. They're, programming and providing, and we are falling short because we're not being funded. And I think it's,
Okay.
frustrating.
And this has been going on for years.
Can we, we could do it ourselves, or does the state provide statistics on how much money for various things different towns offer through their libraries? I mean, what I'd like to do is be able to go to town meeting and say, look, everybody else puts X dollars per citizen into programming for their libraries, and we do whatever comparative to that. Is that, I mean, we could call libraries and ask for their budget information, but is that something the state publishes anyway?
So the state does have, I think, statistics that are listed on their website. It's always a couple years old, so it's not the most current information
Well,
because
this
it
has been
takes
going on
some.
a while, so.
Yeah,
Yes.
and
It'd
I
still
mean, I
give an
think it's
idea,
good to get a couple comparable communities to look
Yeah.
at communities that we want to talk to, similar to what we've been kind of doing with the construction information, right? So we look at, libraries our size, libraries with similar communities, and then we kind of look at how they've funded programming. I mean, I will say, like, Sudbury is sort of a good example because they have really great programming and they put a lot of money into their library, but a
Yeah.
lot of that is from like an extremely active and large friends group, right? So you would think that they have budget support for their programs, and I'd have to explore more, but I know that like it's the majority of what they provide, and it's not just programs, it's like materials that's bought for the library come directly from their friends group, and
So
the
it's
investment in
fundraising,
that is
basically.
financially is very high.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Does the state publish any information on what the friends groups provide?
I don't think so.
No.
That's a good question, Janet. I'd have to explore that more. But I don't believe so. The only thing, the state only asks us about a couple questions regarding the friends group, and it's like if they support items that go directly into circulation. So museum passes count for that. And then if there are any books that are purchased from Friends money, books or DVDs, we add those. Money that the Friends put into programming actually doesn't get reported to the state. That's a number that they just don't ask us for.
That sounds like it would be a conversation with the librarians, the directors at the various places, just to sort of make 6 phone calls and ask them.
I do still do a weekly director's call on Wednesday afternoon. So this is something that I can kind of bring up and pick some brains of some other library directors.
Well, and
It
I
might
guess
be-
it'd be
yeah.
great if our friends linked up with the friends groups of other libraries to get ideas on fundraising, if they have an appetite to be more active. That would be nice.
They have tried, but there's like 5 friends that are active. So it's very hard for them to do very much with nobody, no worker bees, so to speak.
Nobody's stepping up. Well, maybe they need to do more publicity for that too. Yeah, again, it's one of those things of, if you start talking, and get information out about programs that are done in other towns and then you get a conversation going and you get support maybe for budget increases, but maybe also people willing to join the friends and do some fundraising.
The other part is Ryan you've been doing some grant writing to pay for programs, but I wonder if that's an efficient model for your time. I mean, the way that it's very time consuming to do grants, even for small amounts. And we're very appreciative for grants, but I'm not sure that's the best way to turn to try to get $5,000 for a year to do programming. It would be an awful lot of grant writing.
Well, I'm not writing a lot of grants. I haven't written a lot of grants recently. I've still been working on reporting
Yes.
for the grants we wrote last
Right.
year.
Right.
So,
Oh, no,
I mean, I
it's
still
not.
have to we're still closing up the financial literacy workshops. We're doing a youth one next Thursday.
Mhm.
And then I have to write a report before the end of December on that.
See,
So
that's part of how much time it takes too. It's not just writing them, but it's monitoring and doing all the
Yes,
reporting
and
necessary.
doing the 6-month report and the year report. I think
Mhm.
what we're coming to here is the fact that we've really got to, at some point, look at the programming situation and try to find a new way to do it.
Or an additional way to do it.
Yeah, an additional way to do it.
I think the first step is what Kim Regan suggested, though, is if we have a conversation with this group who's looking potentially for a venue, and we start pulling from, Amy Yazdani already had some suggestions on some speakers, maybe that have worked at other libraries, that we could pull into a program for ours. I think once we identify a list of potential programs and or potential speakers, we can start identifying what the costs are, and then kind of the next step would be how to pay for it. Because part of that, like we said, is timing, is that if we have budget money in the budget next year, then we can pay for it directly out of that. But there are other options. There's the donations account, there's even state aid we could look at that could support programming too. So there is money that we can pull from if we have identified costs for what we want to do, right? So I think the next step is, what do we want to do? Like, who are these
So,
speakers?
Ryan,
How much do they cost?
my question for you is, if you had unlimited funds for programming, what would be a good amount in your annual budget for programming? $5,000?
Well, I'm starting at $5,000. Yeah.
Okay, so you could use 10 basically.
But I'm not saying this just for like lecture programs for adults. I'm also looking at how much like summer reading costs
Right.
for Kim, and that's about half the money right there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just that. So
That's
you
just that
definitely-
right there. I know. And there have been years where our programming budget was $800.
We did write a matching grant with the Mass Cultural Council for Crafternoons, and we divested like $5,000 just into craft programming for middle grade students. So I'm going to tell you, if I have money available, I don't have a problem spending it. And also I would just say, the more frequently and consistently we offered the craft programs, we saw a direct correlation in the fact that there was better attendance. So I think right there, that kind of shows you that helps make a case for funding the programs.
Do you know how much the Friends usually bring in from their activities each year?
Well, they got a grant from a Metro Middlesex of 50,000 a couple years ago, so they have money.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was just a one-time thing.
Yeah, Middlesex. When I was with SCF, I got an email out of nowhere saying we are giving you 50,000. I sent my treasurer and said, okay, this has got to be a hoax. But it was the first year they were doing it, and it wasn't a hoax.
Middlesex Bank or
yeah,
what?
Yeah.
Oh.
And so
they did. It was like a community.
Yeah, they've been giving community grants, which
The
is
Middlesex
great.
Bank is fantastic. Yeah.
They are. They have always given. They gave SCF money every year. Just I mean, not 50,000, but several thousand. But I know the Friends at least have that. They got that. So interest alone, if it's invested right, should be. Plus, they did the fudge thing, which was that successful, Ryan?
They got 163 individual boxes that were sold.
Yeah.
So many of those were to multiple people, but I bought some. It was good.
Yeah, I did too. I support them. But anyway, so I know just starting off, there's that, which is a decent amount.
So that's going primarily into children's programming at this
Well,
point.
just to give you kind of a general idea about expenses, Janet, just summer reading costs, I would say on average about $2,500 for that. And that's like, we're talking about maybe like a little over 2-month period of when Kim books programs and needs materials for that. And then the museum passes in a normal year cost about $4,200. So that adds up over time.
And those are both, well, I mean, a lot of people use both of those programs, right? Okay.
Is that still because they reduced a ton of the library passes, didn't they, in the last few years?
So I'm talking about pre-COVID numbers. It has been, because we haven't sort of consistently had the same list. It was 4,200 at its peak. Yes, Amy.
Because I know even when I was on the board, they stopped funding several and then more fell off. So how many are they funding now? Do you know? I'm just curious.
Probably about 10
Okay.
of them, I would
I
say.
mean-
They're going to be looking at the MFA renewal because that just,
A lot of those,
expired.
they've, I know from being on the Friends, unfortunately, the museums just have cranked up the cost of them and then cut down the days, and it's no longer free, but you get 50% off, even though they're charging the Friends twice as much. And so I know they've cut it down for good reason. I just knew that they had to reduce it. So, you know.
I would just say, so just to give you the feedback, Janet, because I try to participate and help out with the Friends group as much as I can, you know, because they support us. I want to try to support
Yeah.
them. I would just say that grant was great, but their annual income doesn't always match the
No.
expenses because we pull a lot for things like the passes and for summer reading. Those are the two biggest things. But then anytime, like they just funded that ukulele program and that was $600. So that right there,
They
that
probably
it
bring
takes
in something like
chunks.
$4,000 or $5,000 a year with fundraising. Does that sound right?
I think the last book sale made about $1,100.
The small one or the big one?
Heritage Day.
The big Heritage Day one.
Yeah. I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
the one
maybe
before
3 to
that made
4
under
sounds more
100.
reasonable.
Yep.
Yeah, 3 to 4.
Yeah, the mini sales were making about 100
Yeah.
a piece.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, they're a very small group that works really hard, but again, they're not the Sudbury group that we can just go to them, yes, and say, you know, oh, by the way, we need, 10,000 this year. So,
Yeah.
there's only so much you can get from an organization that, works really hard, but yet, and again, the used book sale is great, but you have to have a good turnout and, it's a struggle, I think, for them.
yeah, and as you said, Amy, it should be coming from the town as part of our budget.
Right.
But there we are. So maybe we can continue this discussion later. It seems like we've identified the problem. Now we have to come up with some solutions for it. But the Jessica Levinson sounds like a really good way to go. If she could do a couple of programs or arrange it, it'd be fabulous. So sort of it's turning into the theme for 2022 is the whole Indigenous peoples issue, which I think is fabulous. I'd be more than happy to go to, I don't know how many programs on that subject by people who knew what they were doing with it. We know we're on Indigenous land, but we don't know how we got there.
Right.
Anyway, okay, so other thoughts about the director's report, Ryan?
I'm done with that.
All right, good. How about expenses?
I think we're good. Did anybody have any questions?
No, looks under control. Okay.
Yeah, we're moving forward. Pat did a lot of ordering before her retirement, so that was very helpful since we're transitioning some of the staff into working on it and training it. Leah has been very helpful, I would say, at sitting with staff members and kind of going over ordering and then doing ordering herself. And I have been contributing, I would say, a little bit more than I usually do. So that'll probably continue in the next several months.
Is Leah going to be the main ordering person?
I don't think we really have a main ordering person anymore. I would say, because I'm looking at sort of a team structure,
All right.
but will Leah be doing more ordering than everybody else? I would say other than Kim Ivers, probably yes. So we
Okay.
still have not had Mariana start full time. So we're kind of training the other full-time paraprofessional staff. So Carol, Amy Townsley in sort of respective areas. And then once Mariana starts, we've already kind of talked to her about some of the areas we'd like her to focus on, in particular, obviously the young adult collection.
Is she starting on the 21st of November?
She's starting Thursday.
Oh, wow.
Which
Okay.
is,
Where did I get that?
you're
number?
right, the 21st.
Okay.
Yeah, so in
21st
2
of
days,
October.
she's working today. She just, this is her last
still
day,
part-time.
last day as a
Okay.
part-time employee.
All
And then
right.
she
Okay.
goes full-time on Thursday.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so interior renovation people?
Yeah, so for anybody who's been there, the front room is now completely unavailable. They took furniture from one side of the room, they moved it to the other side of the room. and they've built some scaffolding to get to the ceiling because they're going to be repainting the trim and the ceiling first. So that work has commenced. The carpet and the colors and the carpet has all been picked out. So anybody who has questions about that, there's the samples in my office, and I have some of the rejected samples too. So it's going to take, I would say, probably a couple weeks to finish up the front room. And then I'm going to kind of be advising you, I think, as we go as to what they're going to be doing. We're going to be saving kind of the back stacks upstairs for the last part of the project, because that's going to take the most time, because we have to get books off the shelf and then move the books in. So I think we're going to do one side at a time, similar to what we're doing in the reading room.
So
Oh,
when you
go
say
ahead,
this,
Jan.
you're going to do paint and carpeting. When you say it's a few weeks, it's both.
Yeah, the front room, we can split it up so that painting, carpeting doesn't have to
Right.
happen at the same time. But because of the bookcases in the back, we don't have that option. They need to,
Yeah.
we need to paint, and then after the painting is completed, so the bookcases need to be moved. They
Are
need to
you mean the
paint.
stacks, are the stacks moving? They have to get off there so they can carpet, right?
Yeah, because carpet is underneath them.
So moving all those books, do you need volunteers or something to do with that? Is staff going to do it?
No, the company, so Atkinson Carpet is the company we hired. They have movers who do this.
Oh.
Because we found that they were referred by another library. We found them when we first flooded, and we ended up not working with them, but we're working with them for this project now. And they have specific experience moving library collections as
Fabulous.
they carpet.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good. Anything else we need to know about that?
I think so I did talk about the idea of doing kind of a pop-up library, so that I hopefully will have more of an update in November. But what I can tell you is it does look like there's space available on the third floor of Highland Street, where Recreation and Youth and Family are. They're not available Wednesday night, but the senior center is. So we've talked about maybe doing, I don't know what the timing is going to be, and I don't know what the staffing is going to be like, and I don't know what services we're going to offer. I know you'll be able to go and get a library card. So that might be one of the big things that we're doing during that time. And people will be able to return books because we can set up laptops for that. I don't know how much of the collection we want to move. What I think we will most likely do is take like a selection of new material and bring it with us over there, so that we can then make that available to the public. So I think we're going to call it the pop-up library. And then,
Will you be able to bring over holds if people can schedule it?
yeah, so that, and then I would say my biggest thing I haven't worked out yet, Kim, is how to handle the book drops. Like, do I empty them and take them all off site to the new site, or do I try to empty them and process them there? Because we might have the teen room computer available. So it's, I think, honestly, it comes down to how bad is the smell in the building. Like, can I work there for like an hour and get them in, and then we could make the holds available at Highland Street. The biggest issue is going to be people will get automatic notifications about their holds and then go to the library, which is closed, right? So it's a big part of this, I think, in the next month, is how do we market this so that people are aware that the library for a week is going to be kind of at a different location.
Highland
So-
Street is not exactly a high traffic area either. It's kind of hard to find.
I guess it's going to depend on how bad people want their
Wanna go to
holds.
the
We
library.
also have the option, Kim, to suspend holds for that week, because libraries do that on CW Mars if they go under construction.
Yeah.
So we may do that. I'll do that if we have to. I'll say that. We will have to routinely empty the book drops because we want to make sure people can return material during that time. And since we'll be available, I think I can work that out.
So
Okay, and the date of closure
you're using
is-
the building on Highland Street for all of this?
Yeah, so the third floor is kind of like a auditorium space, a recreation space. We'll
Yeah.
be able to set up, it's what they use as a program space.
Right.
So it's booked on Wednesday night for that week, but basically we've booked it for the rest of the week now.
So do they have an elevator that works? Remember
They
they put
do.
one in, it didn't work? They do.
Yeah,
Okay.
they do.
We couldn't use the community house for some of this?
The community house, there's a fee to pay for.
How much is it?
We could talk to B about that. I think she
I think
charges like
that they could
hundreds of,
step up for the community during a time like this, you know? Of course, they're trying to always raise money for the ongoing maintenance of their own building, but
Yeah, I see, because the Highland Street building it's hard to find. It's on the third floor. It doesn't seem like it would be too visible a space, but that's just, I mean,
so we did I did have a great conversation with Pam LaFrancois at the senior center. Basically, the senior center closes at 3 every day, and then it's available after that. To try to get the library in, like sort of our regular hours, I would say during the week would be too disruptive to their programming. Like the rec space is available there, and then there really just isn't space at the townhouse for us to do it, nor do we have the available time. So the Highland Street sometimes is open later because of programming. So that, I mean, I understand this is not ideal, but the other option is kind of being closed at the moment. We can explore the community house as an option. That was a good idea I had not considered.
What
I
about
think
public safety, one of their meeting rooms?
I can ask.
They're open, like just a thought for, it's not permanent.
I don't know how much the chiefs would like the ongoing
In and out.
traffic of the public coming in and out of their lobby to use the library. But I can
actually think
ask.
they would like it. The town just put a ton of money into that and everybody's taxes are going to it. They, and at least initially, they were so proud to show it off. I don't know.
I'm happy to
we're
ask.
talking for a week here, right? We're going to be out of the building for a week.
Yeah. No, you don't want to be divided up into 15 different spots either. That's
Yeah, I
hard.
was thinking like we pick, because Wednesday it's not available at rec. So I was like, maybe that's like the one time we could go to the senior center, but even then we'd have less available. I think like rec, we'd have the spot set up. And we could kind of keep the stuff there, I think, and kind of secure it. I honestly don't know if the same situation exists at public safety. That is good. It's good to come up with alternate ideas and to see what, because I have not explored either that or the community house.
How much
So-
is the community house for a day, do you think? Could we work some kind of deal with her and pay for it out of the library fund, Southborough Library Fund? It seems Highland Street is way out of the way, and it seems like a lot of work to bring things down there for what's probably not going to be a lot of traffic. I mean,
Kim, did you have something?
Yeah, I was going to suggest, I've never been there before, but what about the clubhouse at the golf course? Like, I have no idea what it looks like or how big it is, but would that be a?
It's tiny.
It is, okay.
Yeah, it's very little.
That's another venue I could explore. I don't know that they're allowing other, they would, I mean, part of this is, would one town department even allow another town department to set up there with staff and use the internet and the resources of the building? The answer really is probably not in some cases, because it can't disrupt what is normally occurring in the building. I will, Marguerite, maybe you and I can go over and talk to B about what the cost of the community house would. We still have time. We have another meeting before this happens, and we can always schedule a meeting if it became timely that we would have to talk about this. So why don't we explore some of these options? I would say my plan right now is to set up at rec.
okay. And you've been up to the third floor.
I would say,
That's where they
Sam,
pay-
we don't have access to the historical museum. Sam just suggested the historical museum as a potential site too.
Thinking that too, that's pretty little too.
It's
I'm not
got a
sure
lot
what
of
you
stuff in
can
it
do
at this
with it.
point. Yeah, it's pretty, it doesn't have a lot of traffic space for people.
I don't think it's currently accessible to the public. I mean, our whole idea was to do this in the summer so that we could set up outside. And now
Outside,
we've got to try to find a venue, right? So
well, it is what it is.
the
So-
community house would be ideal, I will say, Marguerite, because we
Mhm.
could grab the stuff, we could walk across the street. That makes
It has
things a
the
lot
internet, does it
easier.
have the internet connection you need?
Yeah,
That's the other thing. I don't
It
know about
does.
that.
It has
does,
internet.
okay. Well, we could,
Also, the churches all have big community rooms. St. Anne's does, St. Mark's does,
Did you
St.
see
Matthew's does.
Sam Stivers mentioned the History Museum?
Yeah, which
Yeah,
I
we
don't
just
think
talked
is
about
open
that.
to
It's-
the
it's
public right
small,
now
yeah.
anyway.
It's very
So
little. These other rooms are massive.
Yeah.
The churches have.
So Ryan, why don't you and I brainstorm about this, and any trustees, if you have ideas, call me or send an email or send to Ryan, and we'll just see if there's someplace that would be closer to the middle of town. I just know that Youth and Families meets down at Highland Street, and it's way out there.
Well, I would make an argument though, Marguerite, that it might be good to bring library services to another side of the town.
Right.
Maybe that doesn't
Yeah.
always have access to the library, or that's closer to some people's homes. Some of the staff live over on sort of the southern side of Southborough.
Okay,
So
so
it might
maybe
even be
that is
easy.
a good option.
Right.
So
Anybody who
I'm
goes
just
to the
saying,
rec office for anything has been there. Anybody who used to be part of the art center,
Yeah,
certainly
yeah,
spent
yeah, that's
a
true.
million hours in that building.
I'm just
And
thinking
the
That
about how
office is terrific.
you're
Is
gonna
the
have to move
space
all the
ideal?
computers, right?
The space is not ideal, I'll say that, but it is space that is being offered. And I would just say, we can explore other options. I don't know how receptive other entities are going to be. I don't think we should have to pay if we have an option where we don't have to pay. That
Right.
I'll start there.
And the other part of it is it's not for a very long time. We're talking 6 days closed max, and it's not
Yeah.
going to be even for that. So maybe it's better just to leave it alone and do it the way you've planned it, instead of spending a lot of time trying to find another place.
Well, I'm just thinking of how close the St. Mark's facility is. I mean, that room, I don't know anybody there, but I've been into that room before. It's really big.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
Janet, the programming space at a church is a good idea too, but I don't know. I know like at Pilgrim, they use it for the food pantry 2 of the days, right? So would we be disrupting
Kindergarten is
the
still
effort
there.
of the food
And
pantry if we go into that space? Like, these are the things that we kind of have to work out, because a week is a long time for us to kind of set up somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And that's
So
a week in a perfect scenario.
right.
It's also like, it may be a little bit longer depending on the work getting done.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so thank you, Amy, for your recent text, and Ryan and you and I will look at options and probably end up doing exactly what you've got planned right now, but it won't hurt to ask. So,
I'm open to looking at other areas though.
All
I
right.
think if we find a place that works for everybody is.
okay, good. So we'll do that. That sounds like a plan. Okay, can we move on to the volunteer policy?
Yes.
All right. Do we have any feedback on the volunteer policy?
I just have a question on the bottom of the third paragraph on the first page. It says the town of Southborough does not provide workers' comp, medical, disability coverage, or liability insurance or volunteers. Are we open to any liability for a volunteer comes in and God forbid something tips over and crushes somebody or something? It just, that sounds a little harsh to me. I mean, I see what it says.
Which section are you in under responsibilities, training and supervision?
Yes, yes.
The
The last sentence in that.
The last sentence. Okay, got it. So that's why the volunteers sign a waiver, right?
Volunteers are covered by the town's insurance if they're inside the building.
Well, now that makes sense. Does it say that here?
I don't think it does.
No, it doesn't. Okay, well, that makes sense.
So do you want to keep that sentence and say outside the building at the end of it?
Well, isn't it different that, they're covered by the town's liability and different from this statement, which is saying we don't provide workers' comp, medical, disability, or insurance?
How so?
Yeah, I read that differently, David.
Yeah, I do
Okay.
too.
Is that like, it's not, they're basically not getting benefits by being a volunteer.
That I understand, but I'm just wondering if, just taking this as it's stated, is that going to be a disincentive for a potential volunteer, saying that, they've got liability, they have potential exposure without any coverage in return
No,
for
it's saying
being
that you're
volunteer?
not getting the benefits of being an employee.
No, I understand that.
But his point is, if you have an injury while you're on the premises, is the town liable?
It's not
Yes.
saying that. It's saying you're not getting workman's comp. It's covering what you're not, like, these are standard stuff that are in all of them, like even from the state. It's just saying they're not employees. Do not expect to get the same benefits of employees, is my understanding.
Yeah.
Why it
Because I will say, David, it's not just volunteers that are covered under the liability insurance, it's also patrons. So like if there was an accident where somebody was grievously injured in the library, like a bookcase fell on them, right? They would be covered by the town's insurances as well, is my understanding. But
I
I'm
think
also
David-
not a lawyer. I should say that right now.
Right.
So I don't know. We'd have to talk to an insurance adjuster if something like that happened. But obviously, if they're volunteering, right, we would never want to put them in a situation where they would harm themselves.
Exactly. That's my point.
But I think the word coverage and insurance there actually means specific policy as opposed to coverage for an injury. This is boilerplate, right? This is in
Yeah.
everybody's, yeah.
It's worth bringing up though and having a discussion about, I think, and making sure that it makes sense in the policy. So I'm glad David brought it up because I
Yeah.
didn't read it that way.
Well, I'm just thinking some volunteers in there and slips on a wet stair, and takes a tumble and gets hurt. Is that person not entitled to some sort of coverage by
No,
the
they are
town?
covered. They are covered.
Yeah,
by the-
right. Yeah, they are covered. So
They
we're
are,
not,
okay, because they're inside the building. Is that the
Yes.
distinction?
But here, but here coverage and insurance means individual coverage or any kind of a, what's the word I want? A
Benefit.
employee
benefit.
benefits. They don't get employee benefits
No, I understand that. I understand.
So I think
Did that stair become wet from a leak in the roof, David?
was the roofers Greenwood?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're probably ruining the day they started on that roof, but anyway.
But
never mind.
a lot of the sort of language from the policy was also looked at and sort of carried over from other existing policies that are there too, from other libraries.
Well, I don't have a problem with it being worded the way it is. I see David's point, and I think the pivotal words are the meaning of coverage. Coverage means do you have a policy, not are you covered?
In my experience, David, just getting a potential volunteer to read this policy would be the challenge,
Okay.
let alone to have them then find a problem with the language in the policy.
Right, show me
so-
where to sign,
I
right?
understand.
So I would just say, I mean, I'm not making light of it. I would just say, as a potential volunteer or in my work with volunteers, I don't think that would deter anybody from volunteering
Okay,
is my takeaway.
all right, that's my concern. Okay,
Do we have any comments on the Corey requirement?
I think it's good we have one.
I think so too. This looks great. Let's take a vote to approve. Do I have a motion to approve?
Anyone? Anyone?
Don't all jump in here. Who would like to, anybody want to move to approve?
I haven't actually been able to open the attachment, so I haven't read it, the final version.
Would
Do you
wanna
feel
hold-
comfortable voting on it then, Janet?
Not really.
Do you want to wait until the next meeting?
Could we? Is that okay?
Yes.
Sorry.
All right, no, we'll move it to the meeting
That's written in
on,
advance.
okay, we'll table it until the meeting on the 16th of November.
If
So
you
if
can't open
anybody has,
something, let us
because
know.
also Jane isn't here and Jane may not have gotten a chance to read it as
Okay.
well. So there's nothing to preclude us from
No.
approving it in November. I would just say, or I should say you, I'm not part of the board. So if anybody has any additional edits, if you could send them to me and I will integrate them into a November version.
Thank you.
No problem.
Is
I
that
think-
okay, Kim and Amy? Kim and Amy worked the most on this, so I
Yeah.
want to, is that okay if we just wait another month?
We'll change the approval date to November. It looks great. Thank you for your work on it. I know it's never an easy thing to make it look like it was so easy to write,
Mm.
but it isn't. Okay, shall we move on to the accessibility of the story walk discussion? Ryan, do you want to fill us in on the consultant?
Kind of a brief notification, but I guess in an ADA meeting, it was not videotaped, so I couldn't watch it. But even though the story walk was not specifically part of the ADA study, even though it was installed when the consultant was there was concern among the ADA committee members that the story walk is not accessible. So Mark Purple brought this to my attention. This was before I got the email about it. I think I forwarded the full board, all of the communications that I've gotten so far on this. I have initially talked with Karen Galligan. I think the only way to sort of look at making the existing structure accessible would be to do some sort of path that's along the area. So, this is not something I've talked with anybody from the Southburg Gardeners about. I have a feeling like they would have an opinion because that's an area they help maintain, is that little garden that's off to the side. I guess the other option would be potentially relocating the story walk or removing it. I'm not really in favor of those latter options. I can say one of the ideas that a staff member had was, why don't you put the story walk along the new sidewalk? I would say the biggest reason why we decided not to do that was because children are going to be walking it, and then that would put them directly next to traffic
The
Very
street.
busy.
on
road.
85 and 30, depending on where it was. So the fact that this is on sort of the back end of the property makes it safer for kids, but I guess it also makes it less accessible for handicapped people, which was not an intention of this project at all. So hopefully I'm going to have additional conversations with Karen Galligan about strategies and ways that we can make it more accessible.
So how are all the other story walks in town made accessible? What have they done?
I did mention this because we looked at the schools as a model. And what I was told is that the ADA committee has not looked at the schools.
Or the
So-
Beals Farm story walk.
I don't know. I don't know that the other story walks are. I would just say, Amy, I have not looked at it in that way.
No, I was just curious how they have made theirs accessible, since they weren't on the list of inaccessible. I am assuming they are. So I just wondered what they've done to make them accessible.
So Bonnie Fanoff sent out a thing saying that she suggested that they have their consultant look at our story walk. I don't know whether consultants just point out the problems or whether they point out potential solutions as well. But maybe we should wait till that happens.
I
So
think that's
it
a
would
good
be
point.
similar to the report that you guys saw on the other ADA items. There are suggestions on things that can be done. And then I mean, some of those costs were like $0 to $5,000. So I don't know how the cost piece was calculated. I could tell you, we've already made Karen Galligan aware of this issue. And she's already had a conversation about potentially doing something there. We want to make sure that this would make it as accessible as the ADA committee would like. One of the things that another committee member brought up to me is the potential of having the story in Braille. I think part of this is maybe not completely understanding what the story walk is, because we swap out the story. So, and it's within a plastic covering. So I don't know how we would translate Braille on top of the book without
So
taking away the visual element of the book.
here's another part of that. It's possible to do the stories with audio, because I think a lot of unsighted people, speaking from my own family experience, don't do Braille, but they would do audio. The two things bother me. One, those posts are sunk in concrete. Am I right?
No,
Are
I
they
don't
just
believe
in the
so.
ground?
They're just in the ground.
Okay, so they could move, and that seems like it would be something that we would, I'm not in favor of a path. I think the path has like a 30-degree angle for part of it to get
Yeah.
up the hill, which would be, you just can't get a wheelchair up an incline
No.
that's straight. We can move it, but I think we should wait for the consultant, see what they have to say, and then revisit this when we've got that information. I think also on the list of things that the library needs to be doing for compliance, like the drinking fountains, the toilets, the bars in the bathrooms, the entrance, we have a prioritized list of things that I would consider utterly essential, like getting into the door easily in a wheelchair, or if you're not sighted. And I think that the story walk is important, but I think the energy at this point should go into working with John Parent to see how we can get compliance in our restrooms, and then deal with the story walk, know what we want to do with it, but deal with it maybe in the spring, because it's not going to be used in the winter anyway.
Well, I also think it's important to note we haven't had an accessibility complaint at this
Yeah,
point.
exactly.
A member of the ADA committee has pointed out that the story walk was not built in an accessible manner, or
Right.
wasn't installed in an accessible manner.
Yeah.
So that is good. And that is something correct that I had not considered when we were putting it in. So it's something we can explore in the future, but we don't have somebody who's tried to use it who said that they can't.
Right.
And
right,
I think that's an important distinction to make.
I agree, Ryan. I just wanted to say, like, I guess that's the point of this ADA study, and I think it's a good thing and it's positive for us. It'll take a lot of prioritizing to get through what we need to do to make these fixes. I think, obviously, we wish we had thought about the story walk with that in mind. So I think from this, we can take away the fact that, okay, for any future either projects or installations or things like that, we just need to have this as a bullet point in our minds to make sure that we consider accessibility.
Yep.
And I mean, you saw in Mark's email about going to the ADA committee for sort of, I guess, project approval, project review. What I identified in my response is that I wasn't aware of this, that none of this was ever communicated to me. I didn't know we were supposed to go to the ADA committee. I think the board knows me well enough to know if I knew that this was a logistic piece that needed to be completed before we undertook writing the grant, before the installation, I would have done that. So, I am sorry that there are people who are upset about this. Our intention was only to help provide literacy, to do something that we've seen the schools and other libraries put forth as a community project. So, I definitely think there are ways that we can work, like Marguerite said, the way that we're working on the rest of the building to make it more compliant. For some reason, this was missed in the study too. I mean, it was installed when the consultant was here and he was reviewing the building. So I don't know why this was overlooked. I do think it's something that we can add in the list of items that we're reviewing and trying to make more accessible.
Yeah, and I think we're all just we're learning from this process as well. So, I mean, yeah, none of us thought of this as you were proposing the story walk either. So we're just going to do the best with what we can going forward now that we know.
And
I think,
ultimately, who funds these fixes? Because
yeah,
since we don't even have the budget to do what we should do, does the town cover ADA compliance? Where does this funding come
I
from?
would say if we're looking at DPW doing some sort of path there to enhance it, that probably would end up being covered under DPW's budget. So that wasn't a budgeted expense. This may have to go into, I have asked this question, Amy. I guess what the capital committee is looking to do in future years is have a specific article at town meeting that goes into funding specific ADA improvements.
Okay.
So this may come out of that article in the future. You know, I don't think anything is going to be done right away. I don't think we're going to be, I mean, we look at closing the story walk in the winter, right? This is going to be the first winter we have it. I'm pretty sure we're going to take the book out and then have the pillars be empty. So
How popular has it been, Ryan?
people like it.
Okay.
You know, it draws a crowd when we replace the book, I can say. And then because Kim has been doing all of her programs outdoors, I mean, sometimes people come early to read the book, sometimes
Yeah.
they come later. I will say it's a lot harder to replace the pages, I think, than we thought once we've got it. So we haven't swapped out the book. I think we've only done it maybe two times, maybe three. So it takes a lot of time.
They
and
don't make it
planning.
easy. It's not, and sadly, they haven't come up with a good way, but if I believe one of the librarians has created a system for herself that she finds is faster. So you might want to check with them, but I would see you could leave a story up through the winter, snow day or something, and just
Yeah.
leave it. It doesn't have to be changed out once snow happens or whatever, but I would bet there are plenty of parents with little ones that would be happy to get them out to a story walk on a cold, but not, 6-foot deep snow day. So just a thought.
Yeah,
I'm
we
happy
might
to
swap
hear-
it out once before that.
I'm happy to
Sorry,
hear
Janet.
it positive and, that a lot of people are using it. That's terrific. It makes it
And
worth
it's-
the trouble to
Yeah.
get this right,
And it's great that they have them. It's at least 3 other places in town. So
Mhm.
ultimately, I think Kim's talking about coordinating at some point and sharing. So that's really great.
does each of the schools have one? Does Neary have one, Trotter one, Finn have
Now,
one?
SCF funded Woodward
And Finn.
Finn.
Mhm.
And the other schools, they're different age generally, so they
Yeah,
don't
they're
do
smaller.
storybooks the same as the younger kids, and then Chestnut Hill Farm has it, so.
Yeah.
I think if we think about installing a path or some sort of paved path, we should make sure to be concerned about like water runoff and be concerned that we don't cause ourselves any additional water issues.
The biggest issue too is that it was strategically positioned around the septic system, which is that sort of hill
Yeah.
that's in the back area of the property. So if anything that we do to make it more accessible, we need to be careful about disrupting the septic system, because that's not something that we want to do. I mean, to Marguerite's point too, I have thought long and hard about relocating it to an area that's more accessible. Honestly, the only thing I can think of is having it not on site at the library, which to me, that's kind of upsetting. That was, we applied for the grant with the idea that it was going to make the library grounds enhance our existing
Right.
footprint outside.
Which it has
So-
done, right, yeah.
Yeah,
But
because your other
Janet,
options are by the parking lot or along 30 and 85, all of which are extremely dangerous for families, so, yeah.
And
Yes.
Janet, it has been a hit, I think. I don't regret doing this. This was something I had not thought about, I guess.
I didn't either. I'm HR person,
Yeah.
never occurred to me.
Yeah, it never came up, I would say, in any of the discussions with the schools or with other libraries or in our analysis of looking at what other story walks did. And that was a big part of what we looked at before we started writing grants for it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, if I can just jump in with this, it's not just the story walk, but it seems like we wanted to use the grounds more to integrate them so that it would be not simply a dead space out there. We would use it. We have the the native plants garden. We have a lot of other things out there. I guess we have to really look at how we're using that, that space in terms of handicap accessibility, which is a whole big plan, which makes me think new addition. We really need to, we really need to think about putting an addition onto that library again, so that we will have space for these things. Just my thoughts. Anyway, so shall we wait for the report from the consultant, hopefully, which will contain a few fixes on this, and then take it up at our next meeting or whenever we get the report? Does that sound like a good plan?
I'm gonna continue to have discussions with Karen and try
Okay.
to see what is feasible for us to
Yeah, I
do.
feel
but-
really bad that they did all that work to install it, and it was so well installed and on, and then it has this one glaring situation that we need to deal with. I feel bad the DPW did that work, and now it needs to get redone, but that's the way it goes.
If
so.
there's a way to do an existing pathway on it, it might not have to get redone.
That's a really steep hill for a wheelchair.
Yeah.
The pathway is gonna have to be really wide for a wheelchair too.
Yeah, that's, so I think we have to consider more possibilities than that anyway. All right, so any other business that shall properly come before the board?
There is an Eagle Scout who contacted me a little over a week ago. He wants to work with us on developing an outdoor programming space. I have not gotten a chance to meet with Kim about this. I haven't met with the Eagle Scout. I would just say I am a little hesitant because I don't think we have a need to work with an Eagle Scout to develop an additional programming space outside on our grounds. To me, I feel like Jane asked this question in a trustee meeting several months ago. She said, are we kind of done with the grounds? And to me, I mean, now we're looking at making a story walk accessible, right? So that's a new project on my plate. But I don't think creating a new area or looking at developing, I guess, sort of a seating area is something I want to do or want to work with an Eagle Scout on. So I guess I want to get the board's feedback on that. I'm sorry I didn't put it on the agenda.
I don't
This
think we
is
even
just-
have the space, do we? Where would you?
Right, I don't think we do. Yeah.
Well, make sure he goes to the ADA committee. with any ideas.
Yeah, I don't
Yes,
think there's.
ask him if he can help out with that.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, it sounds like that's not something that would benefit us right now, but are there any other projects that would be a good fit for this Eagle Scout that we could think of that the library is in need of?
I was going to meet with Kim about that and
Okay.
see if she had any potential projects. Off the top of my head, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that they're coming to you with proposals. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to entertain ones that really aren't going to be a good fit for the library.
One of the things he mentioned was putting in a fire pit. And I would just say that's not something I'm interested in. So,
Fair enough.
no.
A fire pit would be lovely, but I'm not sure we have the space.
The firewood.
also we
Not covered
didn't,
outside.
we didn't really talk about the FY23 budget too,
Mhm.
and I don't want to keep you guys super late. So I did not give a draft of it in the materials. My meeting with the town administration is going to be the morning of December 1st. So we have another meeting to review this. I'm supposed to get CW Mars assessment data on October 29th. That's when they're looking at initially releasing it. It's going to get voted in at Users Council probably an hour before our next meeting, which is November 16th. There's a Users Council meeting at 10. And that's where I think they're going to vote on the final assessments. There usually is not a radical change. The assessment is projected potentially at 2% more than what we had last year. Just a couple notes. There's going to be some additional fees and subscriptions we have to pay for this year. We have to budget for Wowbrary. We have to budget for consumer reports. And then because we're now paying for the Worcester Telegram and Gazette portion of the News Bank subscription, that cost increased too. So I do have like a rough number for the subscription costs that I want to double check with all of our vendors. I've also done sort of an initial mock-up of the budget. I just want to get our assessment costs first. I need to verify that the personnel rate is going to be 2.8%. The budget document said to budget like it's going to be 2.8%, but I like the personnel board to prove that before I start sending budgets out. Also, Kristen and I just need to check with the longevity amounts that go into the salaries portion. Pat was part of that calculation in prior years, and we have to take her amount out. Also, there won't be computer money in there because of what was also stated in the budget documents, is that they want the IT, that to all go through IT now. So my hope is to work with Jay on getting replacement equipment for us, which I guess Jay's going to have to pay for.
So it sounds like that for the budget, you've got a number of moving parts and you can't finalize anything until you've got that data and it's under control, it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I think when I have the assessment information at the end of next week, I might be able to send you a draft of the budget in early November, and then you could review it and we could talk about it on the 16th. If we want to have, I know like sort of before I got here and in the first couple of years, we had several budget meetings. That sort of hasn't happened in practice for the past couple of years. I'm kind of just telling you what my process is right now. And I'm happy to sit down and look over the calculations I've done so far and go over budget information with anybody who wants to. You guys have to approve a final budget before I start bringing it to Mark and Brian. But as you recall, this process always, it's always kind of, we approve a budget, it goes to the town gives us feedback, we have to approve any changes, right? So I'm telling you that we're getting started. I don't like doing a mock-up of the budget until I get the assessment data. We're just
Right.
slightly too early for that.
Right, it's like a tennis match. We do it, we send it over there, they send it back, we send it over there, they send it back. Many iterations, but it sounds to me like you've got full transparency here from what you're telling us, and you're just waiting for data.
I'm starting the programming amount at $5,000. And that's something we can talk about, I would say, in November. I feel like we talked about funding programs a lot in this meeting though. So I have a feeling like you guys might support it, but I don't want to be preemptive. Also, a lot of the money that gets taken out of our computer amount is actually money that gets used for things like computer cords, like sort of general, I would say, equipment that could be part of office supplies. So one of the things I've kind of done is we always spend more in office supplies every year than we have budgeted. So that is kind of increasing, I would say, too, in the mock-up in order to accommodate that request. You know, so that's something, again, we can talk about, I think, once we get there. If you guys think we're spending too much, that's fine.
I
And
don't
we
think
can
so.
reduce.
I support $5,000 requests for programming. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about it, but
I think that amount should be increased.
I do too. I was gonna say,
I don't think you're going to
little.
get much of a bang for your buck for $5,000.
No,
Well, right now we have $1,000. So I would say this is going to be a little bit of a shock to maybe members of advisory and the town administration, because they're going to see the number go from 1,000 to 5,000. So I
except for
think
they've
based on,
asked us- they have asked us, they keep asking us to push it back, and then, oh yeah, you can bring it forward. And that's been going on too. So maybe they
Yeah.
need to look back a little bit and not be so shocked. But that's just,
that's
Well-
not a lot of programs. That's the other. part.
no.
Right.
And I like
on
Janet's
the si-
idea of comparing what other libraries around us are able to.
Yeah,
to
I think
do.
we should have that to have some support for it.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
I would say on the 16th, that is the number you're probably going to see on the budget sheet. If the board wants to ask for more money and that's the budget you want me to submit, that would be the meeting where you guys talk about it, and then you can just make that decision as a group. So I'm not going to submit the numbers unless you guys approve the numbers. So I'll give you some starting points, and then honestly, there are things like water that we're not doing anymore. I mean, I did look at FY19 level for travel costs,
Mhm.
and I did up it to that because that was going to be part of our, I think, FY20 budget before we ended up reducing it. So I'm not spending any money on in-state travel. I'm not really going anywhere, guys. I'm not doing professional development opportunities. I'm not going to other libraries to review things that people are doing. I'm still talking with other library directors over Zoom, and I'm probably talking to directors more than I ever did before
Mhm.
this. So I don't even know if it makes sense for us to have in-state travel amount, a reimbursement amount. I don't think we're going to use it, I would say, in the next year. We might. So that's
What about
another point that
professional
we can talk
development,
about.
Ryan? What is the education programs for the staff?
The professional development fund,
Mm-hmm.
that's going up. Yeah,
Good.
I looked at the FY19 levels again when we spent more money on it, and I think it was at about 1,400. So I put it at that.
Because I think the staff likes it, right? They like having it there as options for them. I think it's important to reinstate that.
And we have a new position too, who probably could use the education
Yep, yeah.
additional. So I don't want to remove anything temporary, like temporarily, if you don't think you're traveling this next year, but you will the year after, then we're back to fighting. You didn't use it last year, so why do you need it this year type of thing concerns me, but.
Well,
Maybe it's not the
I
year
would
to
imagine
increase
all
it.
the town departments, though. I mean, nobody traveled in COVID,
Right.
and they're going to be coming back to it. So,
Well, either way, it sounds like it's very much under control, and we'll wait to
Yep.
see what the numbers are that you get and what it looks like. So
Yeah, if anybody wants to meet with me to see where we're at with it so far, you can let me know, and I'm happy to kind of go over it. I think the salaries portion, again, unless they modify the rate, which every year they've done,
yeah,
every year it's been a different rate.
I
So
know.
I have completed the salary portion based on the 2.8 rate. So I have that ready to go.
Even though you show it here as being level funded.
That is just that. I didn't send it out a draft of the budget. I just sent what Brian sent me as the templates, David. So I haven't actually sent you guys anything yet.
Okay.
Or I did, but I just sent you like the templates that Brian sent me. So the level funded areas, those need to be modified with the increased rates for next year.
Right.
So I've done that like on my own, but because I was watching the personnel board meeting before this, and I don't know if they approved the rate or not. I was hoping to find that out. It looks like they do it maybe later in the meeting or talk about it later. So.
Okay, so work in progress.
Yeah.
There we are. Thank you for that. It's I know it again, it's very clear, and I know that's not an easy place to find yourself, but you've done it again. I feel comfortable with how the budget process is moving along. And I don't think we have that many questions about it at this point. So any other business that shall come before the board? No, Janet's upcoming wedding.
Everybody just hold their
we
breath.
feel like we're all participating in this, even though we're not
Oh.
there.
The town attorney is doing office hours tomorrow. So
Oh.
I'm just announcing that. I know that Janet and Kim potentially wanted to talk to him about the PR and the volunteer. I think we're all set on the volunteer policy, Kim. I think, but if you want to, I'll just send out Vanessa's email. She wanted a heads up so that people weren't waiting for like an hour if they wanted to meet with him.
Did
And then
you
he's
send
doing
in a
it.
request, Ryan? I had drafted one, I don't know. The
I haven't
potential
put in a
one.
request yet, Janet, no.
Okay. Maybe we
Do
should
we
wait
feel
for
like
that.
we need to have the volunteer policy reviewed by legal?
No, I don't.
Okay.
And we can put on the agenda the preservation restriction for our next meeting based on what you find out, Janet. How's that?
Well,
If we
I don't
get
know
to
that
see
Janet's
it,
going tomorrow. This is also going to be available in November, I'll just say. So
Okay,
I'd
so
like
we'll
to
leave
give you
that
guys
open.
a heads up.
All right.
Yeah, that when you do these requests, it asks for a lot of very detailed information, which I drafted up, but Ryan needs to have time to take a look.
Okay, so maybe
And
we'll.
I walking in cold, I don't think will get us very much information. You know, the person needs to review what's happened and the things that we suggest and stuff before it would be valuable time.
I apologize, Janet, that I haven't gotten to that. It was, I know I blame the hiring a lot and now I'm blaming training the new employees, but I'm gonna get to it. And
Just refer to your list of things that.
And
Yes,
budget.
That's
the
fine.
ongoing list of brush fires that is Ryan's job. Okay. All right. So I guess we'll wrap it up there. Do I have a move to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, Janet moved to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, and so we'll do the roll call. Jane Davis not present. David Eckberg.
Aye.
Marguerite Landry, aye. Janet Maney.
Aye.
Kim Regan
Aye.
and Amy Yazdani.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. It is 12:31. Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of the week. And we'll see you soon.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
thank you, everybody.
Leave. Here we go.
Thank you, Kathy, for watching. Oh, she just logged off. Yeah,
Bye.
I'm really sorry, Janet. I haven't
No,
gotten
that's-
to it. I will.
Don't worry about it. I've been a little busy too. See ya.